right. Another episode of Side Note, the podcast dedicated to electronic dance music and all things related. This week, it is my great pleasure to bring on the show breaks legend, dare I say queen, Eva.
Thank you.
And as you can see, we are at the 2021 Furry Convention, live coming at you. Actually, Eva said, why don't we do the podcast in onesies? And I said, why not?
Nothing like a good one-on-one onesie on onesie time.
Yeah, that'll be the subtitle of this episode, onesie on onesie.
It's pretty cozy though. I mean,
super cozy. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end without sort of drenching myself in sweat, but we'll see. We'll give it the old college try. Certainly been through worse. So
much worse, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So what have you been up to? I feel like you are constantly playing, like, if not streamed, like shows and streams. Like, you're one of the busiest sort of local acts that I know of.
Yeah, I guess I am pretty busy. I don't really think about it. I kind of feel like I'm a shark. Like, I don't really, if I stop moving, I die. So I just got to kind of keep going and don't really take the time to process how busy it gets sometimes. But yeah, I suppose it's certainly been a pretty busy pandemic, I would say. When we got locked in 2020 in March, everything went online.
Right.
And so, and we were all trapped at home and trying to figure out how to connect with each other. And so it just kind of became this like natural progression, I think, for a lot of people. And, I really hate when people say, oh, the silver lining of blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
But like the silver lining of the experience was that it really did help bring together and solidify our national fractured crew and start streaming quite often and, build up viewership and build a stronger base and get out there and be visible in places that normally, you'd have to travel quite a bit of distance.
So I guess before the pandemic, were you guys throwing a lot of fractured shows in person, or was it birthed out of Twitch? Like we can build a community now that everything's kind of gone online.
Right. So we did LA, our chapter had done some in-person shows. We weren't doing a weekly or a monthly or anything like that. I did that a long time ago. But in other cities, for sure, yeah. Seattle, so Fractured was born in Seattle, I think in 2017. I hope that's right. And so they had a weekly going forever. And it was just a solid weekly, packed all the time. Other chapters started popping up and doing their thing as well. So there was some in-person stuff going on. And then the pandemic hit, and then the streaming really took off. And now it's just like you said, just we're streaming.
Right. Like I think at least you have a
time.
show at least every week. And then I see stuff like during the week, like constantly. It's pretty awesome. Like,
yeah.
It's sort of like you have your own sort of breaks dedicated like internet network or something. And I guess like for folks who don't know, so right, the Fractured Crew is a collective of breaks DJs in different cities. So it's sort of like a confederacy of breaks.
It's just one gigantic home of the broken beat. But yeah, we have chapters. We have official chapters in Seattle, right, which is flagship home base. We've got Portland. We have San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Vegas. And we also have other DJs that are not necessarily city-based, but more just part of our Fractured Nation community. So we've got DJs that are in Michigan and Florida and Texas.
Got it. So like all told, like how many DJs are in the collective?
We have close to 80 members.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's big. So but the interesting thing about Fractured is that, for example, San Francisco and LA is a perfect example of just how different cities are run. So San Francisco, I think, has something like 30 residents, right? I mean, they're huge. I mean, San Francisco represents, I think, the larger Bay Area community, right? So you have all of Northern California, I think, is really kind of encompassed within that. Under that umbrella. So they have like maybe 30 people. LA just added 2 new residents, and now we have 8.
Wow. And then like, what's the process for joining the collective?
It's pretty organic.
References, resume,
Interview process, voting. I can only speak to LA's process, which is that, LA is led by kind of a three-headed monster, like a Ghidorah, right? Of myself and Helix and Simply Jeff. And I think the first resident to be brought in, actually, Fractured co-founder Dot Diggler, who is from Seattle, and who everybody should know. We had brought on Fester, who is another incredible OG legendary DJ. He's been playing longer than I am. He's going since like the 80s or something like that. He's just phenomenal. And we brought him on for one of our live streams. I think it was an 808 show last year or something. And Dot called me. I think that he was playing right before me, so I was about to go live. And Dot makes me take his call, and he's like, "I'm gonna jump Fester into Fractured." And he was just so impressed. So, and then after that, it just felt only natural, Oscar joining. Oski founded the Los Angeles Breakbeat Association and has been, the heart of breaks in Los Angeles since the mid '90s. And so, all of us have done our own individual things in different pockets and times and territories within Greater Los Angeles, I guess, and have all made our own mark in our own way. But now that we're in this period where Fractured has kind of become this this overarching, all-encompassing kind of network of like when one of us does well, we all do well, and that's kind of the idea. Really, the mission kind of overall, right? It's like we want to support some other breaks crew that's over there, doing their thing because we love the music and we want everyone to do well. You know what I mean? So, bringing Oski in, the founder of the Los Angeles Breakbeat Association, was kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
And then, and so on and so on. Then we added Josex from Bakersfield, who's got a great thing going on. He's got his own crew up there as well. And then we just added Odeed, who's another OG legend, and Reed Speed. Yeah,
like I see like so many OG legends on your lineups, from Jeff to Reed Speed. Hasn't John Kelly been part of the thing too?
John Kelly played he played the LA launch he played our Fractured LA launch party on 808 in 2019.
The originator of the Desert Breaks. Check it out.
Funky Desert Breaks.
Yep. Man.
Unreal. Yeah.
So I guess like taking a walk down memory lane, like tell me about, how you discovered breaks, and also like what about it has resonated with you for so long, right? Because in the time that I've known you, that's certainly been kind of your lane. And I love the breaks, love it. But love breaks. just I guess I'm wondering like what about it has like kept you passionate about it for so long, as opposed versus house versus all the other genres,
which I also love, by the way. I have this reputation as like a total house hater, which I've heard. I have never put that out there. I don't hate house. Unless it's the garbage. I don't like the garbage. Right. I like the good stuff, like anything, right? I shouldn't say that. I really like it. It's great. Breaks for me, I mean, this question, the question of like, why is it breaks, is a little bit difficult to define, honestly. I think that, to me, it just feels so deeply woven now into my DNA that I can't imagine it being any other way.
Right.
It's not that I don't play other genres or that I haven't done that or that I don't appreciate them. I do. I would just, for me, I think, going to see, Farina or Miss Kitten or, somebody who is so deeply embedded into that thing that they love that they're playing is what is just electrifying to me, you know? And the only time that I truly feel that way is breaks.
Got it. And was there like sort of a seminal moment for you kind of growing up in rave where it was like, oh, this is where it's at?
So yes, there is a moment that I can pinpoint. I can tell you the story, but I will tell you that I did not grow up a raver. This is also a little known fact.
Okay, interesting.
So not that I didn't have the opportunity because I grew up in Massachusetts, which is kind of like when rave culture was leaking in over from the UK, it kind of landed on the shores of Massachusetts, and that's where all like the good dirty warehouse shit was happening in New Hampshire and Vermont and stuff like that. And then as it kind of seeped into SoCal and came over, and then the SoCal rave was born, right? Which is a completely singular beast in and of itself, which is beautiful and amazing, and something that that we didn't really have back east in that particular flavor, right? But I discovered the music pretty early on. I think I was 12 or 13, and I was at summer camp. And I was like the nerd that, this is like back in like cassette tape Walkman times, okay? So
right.
I was like the nerd that had the little, I was like the tape doctor, right? So if your Walkman was too old and it like ate your tape, they'd be like, give it to Eva, she could fix it. And I would get my little kit out and do all the screws and smooth it out and tape it up. And so I had to do surgery on this tape that a friend of mine had at summer camp. And I smoothed it out and I fixed it and I put it all back together. And then, you know, you got to play it back and make sure it sounds good. And I put it on, and it was like hearing, it's like the first time you hear, like when you heard like Fear of a Black Planet, or like you heard like Nevermind the Bollocks or Led Zeppelin 4. It was just like what you're like, what is this music? You know, like what is the sound? And that was the Prodigy experience.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And so that just, I was completely hooked. And then after that, I wanted to devour it, and everything that was coming over from the UK at that time. And this is kind of pre-Big Beat era and kind of like leading into that phase. So.
Yeah, I guess like once they dropped like Fat of the Land was kind of like when it became Big Beat, right? That was
right.
Okay.
That kind of, yeah. I mean, you can also argue that like Charlie killed the rave and that's when everything jumped the shark, but I wasn't there for that. But yeah, I mean, Prodigy was kind of like my gateway drug. Okay. And then, you know, then came Chemical Brothers and Fatboy Slim and Underworld and Orbital and The Orb and Aphex Twin, like all of these just...
Right, all of those like iconic...
iconic. Amp TV was happening at the time on MTV, which was like a late night. You could like, they had music videos for artists that they weren't playing during the daytime, like Those People and Tricky and Portishead and just like the weird stuff. Ronnie Size and Breakbeat Era, Goldie... Yeah, all that stuff. So I think, and I grew up also on the East Coast, like listening to freestyle and shit, right? Which is also probably primed me for my career in Florida bass, essentially, right?
Is that how you would define your style, Florida bass?
Yeah, it's pretty Miami heavy.
Okay.
Yeah, Florida. I mean, all of its breaks. If it's breaks, I'll play it. I actually did start out. Early on, when I started playing out, I was playing New School because New School breaks was happening here. It was really big, and Rob Tronic still had Boombox. I don't know if you ever went to Boombox back in the day.
I don't think so.
Oh my God, that party was so great. It was so great. It was a Thursday night party, and Rob Tronic, who later shut down Boombox to go do Compression, which was like a techno party.
I do remember. I did go to Compression.
Yeah, Compression was also great. Yeah, that was always a stacked show, but yeah, New School Breaks was all the rage at that time, and I didn't actually start DJing until I moved to LA in like 2002, 2003, 2002, 2002.
Ish.
I was told there would be no math.
I never promised that.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I got it. Yeah, so I think that like so the story, so sorry, I got really distracted. Okay, so the story I was going to tell was when I found out it was brakes. So I moved to LA, I bought my turntables with my last good tax return from my responsible job back in Boston that I had that I'd left. And I was just buying records. I lived right up the street from Amoeba. I lived on Ivar Avenue. And I would just go down there every day and I would dig. And I didn't really know what I was looking for. I only knew the sounds that I liked, but I wasn't, because I didn't grow up raving and being like, this is like the trance room. This is the main, like this is your
like,
weird
this is
jungle
my
hole.
sound. I'm a breaks person. It was more just like you were looking for stuff that resonated with you.
Exactly. And it just happened to be my favorite track on every album was a break beat. So fast forward to, several months of this, a girlfriend of mine that I think she was a bartender and I was a cocktail waitress at the Spot in Silver Lake, my first job in LA. And we were hanging out and she's like, oh, we're going to go over to my friend's apartment in Hollywood and they're all playing records and you should meet them. They're all DJs. They're great. And she takes me over to this spot in Hollywood and she opens the door and there is this woman spinning records and it is like it was like the skies parted and like the God ray came down and I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is the sound. She actually was playing a bunch of freestyle records that her mom had just sent her she was from Florida. Her mom had just sent her from Florida. And one of them she's like, oh, my mom just got me this. And it was Stevie B in My Eyes, which was a huge hit. I don't know if it like happened over here, but back east, it was like big tune. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm hearing this sound over here. This is crazy. And she was just like, yeah, man, breaks. It's just breaks are the best. And I was like, I guess they are. I guess that I love breaks too. And that was DJ Amex, who was the founder of my first DJ crew, Bitches on the Switches.
I like the name.
Yeah, that was a good one. We had some good times.
So that was the seminal moment. Like, okay, this is my jam.
Yeah.
And it's called breaks.
Yeah. And that's what it's been ever since. And I haven't been able to overcome, nor would I want to overcome my intense dedication and affection for that genre and for vinyl, honestly too. I mean, I think that it's harder to get to bring your records out nowadays. But there's nothing like, if you ever had a love affair with vinyl, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Although, I started on vinyl, but now that I am digital, I do love vinyl. But whenever I go back and I'm like spending all this time like beat matching, like,
yeah,
I don't like this.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, well, because you're reading it in a different way, right?
Yeah.
It's like the digital readout is like, it's practically idiot proof,
Yeah.
and you can, there's a sync button.
And you do it so much more with your eyes now when you're watching the waveforms and whatnot, or you're watching the BPM counter, whereas on the vinyl, it's like all in here.
Yeah. But I think that, I mean, for me, I think that, I don't know. I mean, there's this kind of like decades old argument, or like at least a decade old argument now, since everyone is like digital's blown up, saying that like, if you're not mixing on vinyl or if you don't know how to beat match, then you're doing it wrong or you're not a DJ. And I don't really know that I can, I don't really know if I can subscribe to that necessarily. I think that there's a lot of value in mixing vinyl and learning to mix that way. And it, kind of like to your point, it's like, I got to spend 2 minutes mixing this fucking track and like, have to wonder if it, all your notes are on the sleeve of what key it is or the, the BPM or like, or the plus or minus on your, on your turntable, kind of like where it should be.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it's important to have the fundamentals down. But once you do, I'm like, okay, if you want to use the sync button because it's going to save you 2 minutes of like work and like you can like dedicate that bandwidth somewhere else, like, I don't hate, no hate.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. And I think, and honestly, I mean, there's a whole lot of buttons on controllers and mixers, and CDJs and all this stuff, like, and MIDI controllers and sample pads and stuff that I just don't fuck with. Like, I don't, it's fun. I mean, I'll dick around at home and, and play. I mean, even with, like Serato and Tractor, it's like I have all that shit.
You don't use the bullhorn button?
I have one on my phone. Yeah, I have one on my phone. I actually do have a bell that I sometimes carry out with me to gigs on special occasions.
Yeah, like when I play, it's just a lot of.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, there's a video going around on TikTok right now of like a guy playing, and he's just he's like doing the whole thing. He looks so satisfied with himself too.
You know what? It is. I feel like it's the most satisfying for the person that's triggering that effect.
It's true. It's true. But so you have to hear it.
Everyone else might be getting something out of it, but it's nothing compared to when you're just like hitting that button.
It's true. There's something very like, it takes you back to childhood when you're like playing on the little machine that like the cow goes moo.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes. And then everyone else is just like,
it's ludicrous.
You.
It's bonkers shit. I mean, like, who the fuck why would you do that? Anyway. Because it's fun.
But so like one thing that has struck me, not to like inject like politics into it,
but
let's go. There's a lot of like female breaks DJs, which is awesome. And I feel like as a genre, it seems like breaks has been much more on the forefront of kind of like equal representation than other genres, right? If you look at like trance or techno, like, kind of main stage of those genres, totally dominated by dudes up until recently, where like now, if you look in techno, like Charlotte DeWitt's like a big name that gets thrown around a lot, or like Nina Kravitz. So there's like a lot of like sort of big female techno names now. But when I look back at breaks, like people like you and Reed Speed, and like a long list have been doing it for forever. And do you think there's a particular reason or something about like the breaks ethos that is conducive to that, or you just think, it just happens to be that way?
I think that, it's interesting that you say that, because I don't really think of it that way. Really? I don't really think of, for me, as a lifelong cis woman, I can tell you that, it never feels equal.
Interesting.
It never feels equal, and you never feel like you are necessarily going to be represented or seen, or it's like everything. For me, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I think that I could speak for other women when I say that, you can't just be as good or almost as good or kind of like the same as, the next dude over here that's like just wants to play new school at like the bar and doesn't care about getting paid, You have to beat them. You have to beat them all the time. And, coming up as a DJ, and actually I think that Reed and I have talked about this, or she spoke to this once. I never, when I first started playing out, I always would do it in a baggy t-shirt and jeans and like my shell toe Adidas and like a baseball cap, and would just kind of put my head down and do my thing. Mm-hmm. Because it was the early aughts, right? And it was at a time where, not that it's changed everywhere, but it was certainly at a time when you had, you had like the Playboy DJs or the topless DJs. You had like these women that are legit great, at their jobs. But the conversation wasn't about their sets, It was about what it looked like, or that it was kind of like this novelty thing, or this.
Yeah, it was about like sort of showbiz.
Yeah, like it was just like this eye candy bullshit, And like now we're kind of in this DJ celebrity culture where it's not just dark room where people are facing each other on the dance floor and losing themselves. Everyone is facing you. Everybody's watching what's going on. And, the first several years, it probably still happens now. It's like there's always someone kind of like staring over your shoulder or saying like, that was a very impressive mix. It's like
what did you expect?
Yeah, what did you expect? And so I think that I got to a point after several years of just like working really hard and doing it this way where I just kind of decided one day that I wanted to wear makeup and I wanted to put on heels and maybe I wanted to wear a skirt. And,
did you feel like that changed sort of the way that your art was being received, or?
I think that what changed was I think I kind of accepted that if it wasn't going to be the fact that I wore heels, it would be the fact that I wore a skirt. If it wasn't the fact that I wore a skirt, it would be the fact that I wore red lipstick. If it wasn't the fact that I wore red lipstick, it's because I played on a set with another guy that I was friendly with, and maybe he got me the get. You know, there's always going to be something that's going to make somebody out in the world look at me and say ... for a girl. You know, it's like the most backhanded compliment when people say, "Oh my God, you're such a great DJ for a girl."
Do you get that a lot though? I mean, that just seems, I mean, I don't know, right? Because I've never been a female DJ, but it just seems so absurd to me that that kind of thinking would cross somebody's mind.
It is absurd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's, I mean, especially like as ravers, right? It's all about the plur and all of that. And, you know, like at least as a principle, we all say that like it's about the music. And I know for me personally, like I don't give a shit who's behind those decks as long as like I'm moving.
Yeah.
So,
give me something. I mean, I mean, like women have been playing music to the rave scene and to undergrounds and in the mainstream as long as the dudes have, you know. It's like you look like Irene and Rap and Colette and like Heather, like, oh my God, Heather, you know, like is brilliant, you know, like these women have been here. I'm only naming like 4 women, right? Of course, off the top of my head, but it is true. I mean, if you look at a lineup on a flyer, a lot of times, you know, it's terribly imbalanced. And so I appreciate, Nick, that that's your perspective about breaks, you know, that's visible to you, that you're seeing that that it does feel more balanced.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, even those names you mentioned, like Rap and all of that, it's like that. I mean, those are like old school DJ. They've been around, you know, since I started raving.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that has been my perception, like that in breaks, it seems a little more equalized.
I really like that. You know, I think that especially, you know, I can speak definitely within Fractured because it was founded by, you know, one of the co-founders is a woman. And there are women residents in all of our cities, and that we pride ourselves on great DJs, you know, regardless of what they're what they identify as. So I think that I don't really know if that's like a breaks wide thing. I know personally that for me, that has always been part of my mission, is to make sure that that women are seen. Because I mean, for years, there were like 3 DJ crews and 2 MCs that I worked with almost exclusively, and they were all women. You know, and each one was like doper than the last. I mean, they were just all incredible artists, you know, that I learned a ton from. And so it's like growing up in a multiracial household, you know, and kind of the beauty of it is that you're not exposed to the horrors of the world of prejudice and racism because you're just kind of raised in this like loving environment. I'm speaking now from my own personal experience. But then when you do get out there as an adult into the real world and you see some fucked up stuff and you don't understand it, you know, there's just no, you kind of can't wrap your head around it because you've been insulated and purposefully kind of placed into an environment and a community that is supportive and supporting good values and equality and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think that for breaks, all of my crews and you know, like back when I was doing, I threw a club called Broke as Fuck for like 10 years, you know, it was all about representation and beyond that, it was all about like good sounds.
Even like, you know, Simply Jeff, right? He's probably one of like the rare few like Asian DJs that I know of, right? Like outside of like maybe like Satoshi Tomie, like on the house front. So yeah, it definitely like have to like reiterate that I feel like breaks like super inclusive, which
yeah, we've got a lot of well, I mean, you know, the 3-headed monster of LA is we're all some type of Asian. Right?
Yeah, like yourself, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and Helix also.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, we're all ambiguously tan people.
Like, isn't John Kelly Asian too, or ish?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's his mix is something really interesting and beautiful. I don't know. You should ask him. You should invite him over and ask him.
Oh yeah, totally. I
know.
would love to have more breaks legends on and like learn the history.
Let's party. What do you want to know?
Yeah, so I guess taking it back, so you had this sort of seminal experience seeing East Coast kind of breaks come over here. So how do you go from there to like now I'm playing shows and playing parties?
Well, that's a really great question. So when I initially got my first pair of decks, I think it was 2002 or 2003.
Okay, and it was vinyl at the time.
And it was, it was just strictly vinyl at the time. It didn't even occur to me that there was any other way to do it. And I'd always had vinyl growing up, of course, because I am of that time. I was like, I want to collect vinyl. This is going to be cool. And a movie had come out recently called Scratch, which I don't know if you haven't seen it, then watch it. It's amazing. I
have not.
Get on it.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good. It'll make you feel so good. But oh my God, his name escapes me, but there's a gentleman there and he is talking about what it takes to become a DJ. And his friends had said to him, like, gave him the advice that it's like, if you give up everything, you give up wine, women, you give up your social life, your friends, you just lock yourself in your room for a year, you will come out a DJ. And, I moved to Los Angeles alone with my 2 cats and a bag of clothes strapped to my back. And I didn't, I had some connections from back east out here and was kind of slowly getting to know people and make friends. But, I don't really have the community that I do now. So I basically spent, like a year just kind of locked in my studio apartment and just going down to Amoeba. And at the time, Vinyl Fetish was still on Cahuenga. So I would go there. Beat Non-Stop was on Melrose.
You go to like DMC.
That Beats, yeah, DMC. I even took a couple trips down to, there's a great record store, DJ Culture, of course, in Costa Mesa, which is, that was Jeff's store. But there's this great record shop in San Diego called United. Did you ever shop at United?
No.
It was small and it was dusty, and there wasn't a ton there, but I actually found a lot of good Florida there. I wish I asked who was buying their records at the time. Somebody knows. But I would just go on these trips and I would dig and dig and dig all day and then come back and then just play and play and play and play and play. That was it. And then I think I first played out maybe 6 to 8 months after I had started. No, that can't be right. Could that be right? No, maybe a year after I'd started.
That's pretty good practice time. I feel like that's basically what you need.
Like a year, I think I played out, and there was this awesome party called Rhythm Lounge, and it was at the Port of Athens in the Valley. It was on like Riverside and Whitsett or something. I think it's a sports bar now. By the Val Surf, right on the corner.
Okay.
There. It was a Wednesday night party, and that's where all the breaks heads hung out. They would go there, and then they would go to Boombox on Thursday. Mondays would be Monday Night Social, which occasionally had breaks, and $2 Tuesdays, right? The Moon Tribe $2 Tuesdays. And then the weekend was full of like Avalon and Giant and Spun Day. Oh my God, I just laid out the week every night.
I feel like you could make a track out of it. I've definitely heard tracks where like Monday night we went to this party and then Tuesday night we went to the other party. But yeah, like Monday night, yeah. I mean, MNS still around? No, not. It is not Monday night.
No. I don't know when they stopped doing that. It was one of the last times the last time I played at Sound was when Monday Social was still there.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know how long ago that was. It's like at least a few years.
Yeah, I mean, now there is like the whole new generation of weekday parties, but a lot of them, like I had never heard of until recently.
Yeah, totally. I can't keep up with that shit. But it is nice to see that, you know, you can kind of look at it from the kind of the angle of like, oh, these kids are like, they don't know, or, you know, whatever, and they're just whatever the complaint is. But I'm going to give it up for the kids because they're throwing these parties and they are packing those houses. I mean, they probably shouldn't be doing it now because of COVID, but like they are, you know, pre-pandemic in the before times, you know, they're like packing house and they are so motivated and they're so excited to be playing music. And it's a bunch of, and they are mashing up different sounds and genres and they're using their own technology. They're not, you know, it's very, it's so driven and experimental. And even though like culturally, you know, I'm just a little bit past that time in my life where I can kind of like get that crunk on a Tuesday just like hype at the bar. It just fills my heart with joy to see it happening. Even I'm just like, oh my God, go for it, kids. Like keep going. Like,
yeah, I agree 100%. Like I've gone out a lot more for this program, you know, to kind of network and see what's going on. And I'm super encouraged at what I'm seeing. Like there's still really good music being played. The parties are, like you said, like pretty like full. And yeah, like they're just up for it. And like the kids are all right. They're keeping it going.
Even there's, you know, Respect, which is the Drum and Bass Weekly in town that Justin and Machete do. That's been going on something like, I mean, it's over 20 years now. I think I have like a 20-year anniversary sticker like on my laptop or something. I mean, Respect has been going on for, now it's a decades-long party. And so a bunch of us older fucks will go out, you know, and still tear it up down there and see our favorite DJs. But you also see in these photos, like these younger kids that are coming and, you know, coming to this legendary party and then getting to hear, you know, such beautifully curated sounds because the people that are running these shows deeply care. And eventually, you know, this torch is going to have to be passed down, you know, in some form or another. Like someone's got to keep it alive. And I think that the best you can do is just give those kids the best chance they can out the gate by exposing them to something that you believe is valuable and let them take what they need from that and leave the rest.
Yeah. Well, one thing I have noticed, you know, in terms of kind of the new parties that I've gone to is that there's a lot more blending of the genres than there used to be. So I'll hear a lot more breaks now alongside house and techno.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I never used to hear before. And
it would always kind of just be like you were going to come here and do tech house now.
Yeah, everyone would kind of stay in their lane, and now it's sort of, you know, a lot of the stuff I've heard, everything has a kind of rave aesthetic. So it feels kind of like 90s warehouse, but it's across the gamut. So you're getting like the house, the techno, the trance, and the breaks kind of all like rolled into one.
Yeah.
Which to me is like, I love, and I think it's kind of like hats off to Gen Y Gen Z, for kind of going back through like the rave kind of annals of history and like synthesizing something new and kind of making it their own. I think it's awesome.
They've mashed up the entire flyer of 4 rooms and condensed into one night.
Yeah, exactly.
One stage, one night.
Exactly. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like I can support this. And it's certainly, for me personally, you know, better than some bullshit like, you know, like no disrespect, but like Afrojack or something like that, you know? Which, you know, it's like, I guess on that point, I was actually watching this documentary, like how we started this. It's on Netflix. It's about dance music.
Oh, yeah.
There's a good quote from Seth Troxler where he's like, yeah, like EDM is show business. It's about the show business. It's the Hollywood aspect of it.
The EDM, the air quotes, the EDM.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas kind of like underground, whatever lane you're in within that is about the art. And, you know, even though like it sounds pretentious to say, like I have to agree like 100%, you know, like the people who participate in underground, regardless of genre, you know, they're artists and they want to put out art. And, you know, as far as what's happening now, like, you know, I a lot of the Gen Z parties, I think, are very focused on creating art rather than just, you know, being show business types.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. You know, I think that it's both, honestly, because maybe that's just because because we live in California or we live in LA, that like there's always kind of like this business element, right? It's like we're all involved in the business or the industry in some way, right? So I think that like there is an element to that because they're not just doing it because they want to throw their money away and get nothing out of it. They want to get somewhere from it, and that's why there's at least 2 photographers at every show, and that's how you get, all that. But to your point also, and the thing that I do find interesting, and I'm really glad that you bring up, is that it is, there is much more of a mashup of an artistic element. And I think that's because perhaps it's that us old ravers, have now paved the way through stumbling through finding our own identity and expressing ourselves and building the underground and rave culture and rave scene and parties into, what they've become. I mean, look at what EDC started in a fucking dank ass warehouse.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Now, like,
and
the
now
biggest event in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. And it's incredibly, it is multiple stages, and each one of those is not just filled with fantastic musical acts, but also infused with really remarkable art. And I think so now, it's a very interesting crossover element that you mentioned there, both musically and then visually.
Right. So another question, I have for you, so I, as someone who's been focused, much more kind of on the house and techno tip, I'm very aware of kind of what the overarching trends have been over the last sort of 20 years that I've been kind of a fan, and, musically and otherwise. Like what, within breaks, what are some of the changes that you've seen? So like, for instance, in house and techno, and I've talked about it on the show before, like I've noticed a considerable increase in BPM. So it went down, it decreased, and then now of late it's gotten much faster to where I'm seeing tracks, in like the 145, like. So,
really?
Yeah. So, and like techno music in the 145 that's not considered like hard style or gab or anything.
What would you consider that?
I don't know. Yeah, like I would consider from the old lens, like this is definitely hard style, right? Or this is definitely gabber. But it's passing as like regular techno. Like it sort of gained acceptance as part of kind of not the mainstream, but like the not mainstream, the underground mainstream. Mm-hmm. So I guess what kind of are there similar trends across breaks that you've seen, whether it's like, oh, well, there were a lot of, like tribal samples for a while and then they went away or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the raviness of it all, like the rave piano, the old school rave chords, that's a big one. Integration of some kind of trancier themes and elements has been a thing. I think really mostly, I think that I found that people don't really write long tracks anymore. Used to be like plump DJs, right? Like the way that they would construct a track was just, it wasn't, how do I say this? I don't know. It was longer. They were kind of experimenting a little more with the math behind it, maybe.
Or like kind of progressive, right? Because there was a time where like progressive breaks were a thing.
Oh yeah.
Where you'd have like these like 12-minute long like bangers, whether on the house side or the break side. Yeah. I guess that's a thing too. But is that kind of what you're talking about in terms of like the progressive?
I think more what I mean. I'm sorry. I think I just realized that I was melting under here. I'm coming out of here. I just realized. That
I didn't last very long.
I'm very hot right now. Okay. I think what it is that just the attention span is shorter, right? I mean, I think that we just want to play more tracks in the time that we have, and so the tracks are just getting shorter. It's like I've got a bunch of great tracks that are like 8 or 9 minutes long, and I have a bunch of great tracks that are like 2.5 minutes long.
You do? Okay. So yeah, is that something that has increased over time, like the number of tracks that you find yourself playing in one set?
For me personally, or in general? For me personally, it depends. I mean, I don't really like programs, so.
Got it.
I mean, I'll look through my shit, you know. I don't
Right.
go like completely unprepared.
Actually, so on that, yeah. So
Yeah.
you're pretty on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that like, I mean, it's one thing if you're preparing to do like, if you have to like lay down a mix, you know, like then there's a lot of care and a lot of preparation that goes into that. But I think that when you're going to go play a show and you're going to go play live for people, like you can't just like, if you just have your set that you plan to do, right? And it's just laid out and you're like, I'm going to do this. And then I'm gonna push this button, and then I'm gonna give them that. And this, you know, it's like you get 6 songs in, and like you look out, and like your crowd isn't feeling it. You're like, well, I got 11 more bad choices for you coming up. You know, you can't. You know,
There's no like reading the crowd. Yeah.
I think for me, ultimately, like what has been the most rewarding for me as a DJ is the fact of this kind of like the collective experience, right? You know, I mean, the idea that like we're all on the same. It's like a level playing field, right? We're all equals and we're all looking for an experience, right? So you want them to plug into you and you want to plug into them and just like gain trust and like figure it out and just go, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I guess on that, you know, one of the other things I wanted to ask was how has the crowd changed in the time that you've been playing?
Well, the biggest change, Nick, is that they're no longer in front of us because we're playing the computers all the time.
Fair enough.
So that's really the biggest change that I've seen. To that point, though, one thing that I did not expect to have happen by switching over kind of to just streaming all the time instead of doing shows in person is that everybody kind of figured out how to do that community thing online, like in the chats and stuff like that. People are totally bonding and having a good time. And
yeah, I mean, every time I tune into a Fractured show, I love the comments in Twitch.
it's so fun.
Yeah, and you see a lot of the same people come back. And I know like within like the circle that we know, I love like, I'll just tune in, oh, hey, Al's on or Shay's on, which is awesome. Yeah, so the sense of community that you guys have built is really cool.
Yeah. That's been great. And it's not just Fractured. I mean, you go to like a Raves to Stream or you know, something else on Breaks FM or the Kaleidoscope crew. All have built really, really incredible communities within their kind of streaming network. And, you know, and everybody's also friends. So when one of us goes over there or somebody comes over here, you know, it's like we're playing on each other's streams or just like a longer session or a raid train or something like that, then kind of everybody gets to intermingle. And that's been really nice because a lot of those people are, you know, it's like there was somebody in our chat from Singapore yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
Fractured
dope.
International.
Yeah,
it's no longer the nation.
Right? Yeah. We're going to have to work on that one, I guess. Yeah, but I think that otherwise, like in person, I think that it really just depends. I mean, a lot of the focus, like I was talking about before, about how everybody is facing you now. That's kind of a big thing. Although I kind of feel like maybe in some more casual, like burner kind of community type parties, it's not always like that. People will socialize and just kind of like intermingle and like let it happen. But I mean, the energy's still good. I've like no complaints. A+ everybody. Good work.
And then in terms of the shows, you know, you've built this community online. What's sort of the game plan for kind of bringing it back into the real world? Because I know I thought I had saw that you played at the Midway recently in SF, right?
Yeah. So I've done a couple in-person shows. Not very many. We did the Midway.
Which is an amazing venue, by the way.
Midway's great. Yeah. That was my first time playing there. I really, really enjoyed that. I played a show at Public Works. These are actually both shows that I did with the Pluri F Collective. And then I just did another one recently. I don't know. I didn't know. When I was overseas, I played at like a bizarre pop-up, like garden, backyard boogie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Type of thing, which was super cool. It was at this, I don't even really know how to describe what this was.
Okay.
It was amazing though.
So the shows are coming back
Yeah.
in person to some
Yeah.
extent. I guess probably outdoor for now, or maybe even
Outdoor feels good. Indoor is permitted right now. I don't see a world where that doesn't go away because of what's going on.
right.
Just kind of the way that I just see things going. I feel like some more restrictions are coming in place, but I think that, the industry is trying with doing proof of vax at the door or temperature checks or like negative tests and stuff like that. So, I mean, we'll see. The capacity, I think, everyone's at full capacity now. I don't think they're restricting that anymore.
No. Yeah, I mean,
What do you see out there?
Yeah, the stuff I've been to, I feel like the vax sort of, like they would advertise like, oh yeah, like we're going to check vax cards, but they didn't. Like, or they would just ask, are you fully vaxxed? Like, yes. And I am, but like, I don't feel like they were like enforcing it at all. It's just sort of to
Does that make you not want to go in there, or do you trust it enough to go in?
No, I trust it enough. Like I'm of the mind of, as long as dying is off the table, which according to what I've seen, and again, I'm not an epidemiologist, and I know in this day and age, everyone, has an opinion.
Sure.
But my view is as long as dying is off the table, which I believe that it is, now that I'm vaccinated, and probably even before, I probably would have survived anyway. But now that I have some sort of reasonable certainty that it's off the table, then I'm okay.
Yeah. I'm still struggling with it. It's hard. And in terms of fractured, we have chapters in different cities, right? And the rules are different in different cities. So, in California in particular, right? Like LA and San Francisco, we're really struggling with doing stuff in person right now, just because of what the numbers are telling us about gathering. And ultimately, it's likely that we can do it safely because we're all very protective of our community, and because we're all I'm definitely a germaphobe. So, I would probably put some nutso shit in place. But ultimately, I think it came down to just having to be the person taking responsibility for all those people. If some shit goes down, if you have an outbreak because just something snuck in there, just at the end of the day for LA anyway, I know that was a responsibility we weren't willing to take. Now, there are other cities that are doing stuff in real life and it's going great and everybody's safe and it's, it's going really well. So I think it just, city by city is kind of, everyone's going to have to just keep their eye on it and see what's good and what feels right, and just keep doing it until something else feels better.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I'm definitely with the outdoor parties. I feel like they should continue. There's one I've been going to. I think it's Moon Tribe and Subtract. They throw a party at like this ranch every Sunday, every other Sunday.
Great.
Yeah, and it's open air, so it feels like pretty good.
Yeah, outdoors is nice. I mean, we're incredibly privileged that we have this option.
Yeah.
Yeah. That feels pretty good.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I feel like earlier on in the pandemic, there were places in Europe that were having parties inside.
Oh, yeah. What's going on here, too?
Yeah.
There was some crazy
there was
rave shit happening.
There was
here.
illegal shit happening here, whereas there were places in Europe where it was it was allowed as long as, everyone got tested or something, which I was very jealous of then. But yeah, now I think I'm I can, leave or take the indoor party, but I definitely want to keep the outside party.
I mean, I can't wait till we can go back indoors and not fear it. That's kind of a big one for me. I have been indoors. Sorry, I keep sweating. I have because we're in onesies.
Yeah, we are in onesies.
This crazy experiment. Oh my God, what are we doing? We're comfy. That's what we are. And sweaty. I think that. I mean, I really miss the indoorsiness. I miss that. I miss everything about that. And I'm so curious to see if, everyone keeps saying like, there's no going back to normal. And I agree with that. I don't think there's any going back to normal. But I'm curious to see what our new normal is going to be. And especially now that we've seen this level of like community building and outreach and support and love pouring in from all these people that are jumping into these chats and want to make friends and just want to be seen, the same way as we all felt when we were younger, and that's kind of how we made our way into the underground, is because it was just like anything goes, like you're fine, like you're perfect, just be idiosyncratic you.
Right,
it's
yeah.
the best,
Claire, that's the point. That's the
whole point.
Yeah.
Claire, man.
Yeah. To feel empowered to be yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess
thing.
It is a beautiful thing. I mean, here we are, aging ravers doing our thing. And actually on that, I think that'll be kind of, my final question to you. Do you ever see yourself not doing this shit? Because I know I don't, and like, I'm getting up there, pushing 40, and I'm like, dude, I can legitimately see myself doing this shit as like a senior citizen. There's a crew that we know and that, that we hang with, and we throw events and stuff. And it's like, yeah, are we going to be doing this when we're 60, 70? Like, where do you see it going?
I mean, I think that they would all say yes. I mean, right? They do all say yes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all unanimously agree that we're probably going to be doing this shit, into our golden years.
Yeah. I mean, what it looks like may evolve, it's like, I'm definitely not climbing a tower of speakers like at 5 a.m. or anything like that. Like, I guess never say never, but, yeah, I think that I don't think that this stops. I think that how we participate, whether it's, if we're still, going out and busting up big productions in the middle of nowhere under the moonlight, or if it's just doing it live in your living room with your homies or whatever it is,
right.
Like, I don't think that I think the execution may differ, but I think that the mission remains.
Right. Well, I think so. Some of our mutual friends tried an experiment with that a couple months ago, right? With a house in NorCal. So I guess that was an attempt at sort of maturing it into more of a bougie, family-friendly affair.
Yeah.
So I didn't go, but I guess would you say that was a success?
Yes, I would say that's a success.
Yeah.
I mean, I think though, that I've been parts of lots of those experiments over the years, and that's kind of, like the no-cella was always kind of more popular than the Coachella. You get a house for a week and bust it. So yeah. The bouginess only comes into play if it just depends on, if you're going to rent a fancy spot, or you're going to go if you're just pushing back the couches. And
well, I think the evolution of, this event that we're talking about was that, our friends had rented a nice house, but a lot of people have kids and stuff now. So I think, people had brought their kids. So it's like this merging where you're kind of building it's like a multi-generational like rave community.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love seeing the kids growing up inside. That's kind of the great joy, is watching everybody, like, our friends that have chosen the path to parenthood, and then bringing their kids in, and it's like, no, you got to learn how to sleep through this shit. Like, we're not, we come in and be like, oh, we want to meet the baby. Should we quiet and meet the baby? They're like, no, just be yourself. Like, they got to figure it out. Like, this is who we are, and this is the shit that they're gonna, it's like, we're not gonna turn down for the kid. Like, figure it out. And yeah, certainly, like, you go for a weekend getaway with your friends, and you plan on having 12 hours of amplified music overnight. You'll put the people with the kid in like the far corner room, because that would be really difficult to be that parent, having to navigate that kid that can't sleep through that shit if it's not going to work. But, yeah, I have been fortunate enough to see over this span of many years now, see kids that have gone from very young to little adults, you know, and that have been raised within, you know, with rave parents, that with going to Burning Man, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole section at Burning Man for families.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing, I've only been once, but the time that I went, I remember seeing tons of kids.
Yeah. You've only been to Burning Man one time?
Yeah. 19. So the last Burning Man was the only Burning Man I've ever been to.
Oh my God.
Scratch that off the bucket list, though. I mean, I can't wait to go back.
I'm only sweating on my upper lip, by the way. I don't know why that's happening. It's really weird. Maybe that's something that happens when you get old, too. Are you going to go this year? Are you going to go to not Burning Man?
Oh, like Renegade?
Yeah.
Renegade Burn. I was talking about that with Simon
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. I don't think so. Like, I feel like I need the infrastructure. And it's like, okay, like if I could figure out a way that we could all do it together and like have an RV or something where we create our own infrastructure, maybe. But
I need a place to poop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Place to poop.
Are you, or is that something you're considering?
I would. I definitely would go. Schedule wise, I don't think it's going to work out for me this year. If it did, I would be like, I'm just going to go drive to the playa now and just, you know, go.
Right. How many times have you been?
To Burning Man, I have been like 7 times maybe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I know our friend Digital Rust, you know, I think he's been like 12, 14 times or something, he said. Just like blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, like, if once you get bitten by the bug, I mean, there's sometimes if you're lucky enough to just keep going every year, that's just what happens.
Right.
I mean, people do Coachella the same way. It's like, oh, I never want to miss it, you know?
That's true. I feel like so I've only done the one burn, which amazing. I wouldn't trade that experience
19 was great.
For anything. But I'm still in that phase where it's like, I liked it, but it was also like pretty difficult. And it's like, I don't know that I can endure that again.
Yeah.
I feel like if given the opportunity, it'd probably be a yes, but also there's a lot that like sort of keeps me from being like gung-ho about going back.
Well, it's really hard. I mean, Burning Man is real. I never wanted to really, I wouldn't say I never wanted to go to Burning Man, but I wasn't at the time. The first year I went was 2008, and I was offered a ticket, and at the time I was like deeply into like going to WMC in Florida, and I was raised in the city. I'm a city girl, so the idea of like going camping in the fucking desert with nothing and like just trying not to die I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this at all. And then I was gifted a ticket, and my friend was just like, I have a bike for you. I was like, why do I need a bike? He was just like, I have a bike for you. He's like, just
go with it.
Bring water, bring like some food packets, and bring your records. And all you have to do is just come live here. We'll take care of you. Just spin records for us. And like, we got you.
Wow.
And that was my friend Naj. And it was a trajectory altering experience for me. Because a couple years after that, I stopped going to conference, and all I wanted to do was go to Burning Man.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to WMC either.
Oh, really?
Okay, so you used to go to that, or okay?
Yeah, I went to conference quite a bit. There was a good chunk of several years where that's what I was doing, which is also a great. I mean, that's a whole other discussion for another time, or maybe those probably stories shouldn't be told at all. But yeah, Burning Man, I was really shocked at how well I took to that, especially because I didn't grow up camping, and I grew up in the city, and I don't really have a particular connection to like, oh, let's pitch a tent and like do it. You know, it's like.
So I would do it again to see what it's like with a camp. Because when I went, it was just me and Julia, and it was just the two of us, like just pitching our own tent, like surviving on our own, and not having any sort of network or like infrastructure to support it, which is really difficult. But I'm sure like if you have like a group, it kind of probably takes the load off a little bit, I'd imagine.
Just come live with us.
Yeah, sure.
Just come live with us.
Sure, let me know.
Just come back. Okay. Well, we're gonna actually leave here in our onesies, and we're just gonna drive out right now. I mean, spontaneity I was talking about, it's happening right now.
It's getting close, right? Isn't it? Like they should be building right around now.
There are people. I'm sure there are people out there already. Oh God. I really do want to go. I want to see, here's why I want to see it. Because the lack of infrastructure is tough because of all the obvious reasons, right? But you got to remember that like Burning Man had dick for the longest. There was no infrastructure. There was no power. There was no, it was just like a dude on the beach that just had to burn some shit and his friends came to support him. And then like, that was the burn, and it has only built itself into this wild machine that it is now
in recent
over
years.
time, right? So I think that what interests me about going to not Burning Man is that kind of renegade aspect. It feels, you know what 4th of July is?
No.
It's kind of like the same, it's just renegade shit that's like happens over that weekend in July, and you just go and it's just old school road warrior shit.
Wow.
It's as close to what the old experience was, or the original experience was. And I think that's what interests me, is that by 2008, a lot of that had been stripped away because there was so much infrastructure and it was already getting so big. And so it would be interesting to just participate on that level.
Kind of getting back to basics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're coming up on time. Have to thank you again. So great to have you on and to get to know you a little better. I know we run in sort of concentric circles here, and you even played at one of my parties a while ago.
At your Side Note party, yeah.
But have never really gotten a chance to like really sit down and get to know your story. So I really appreciate that.
This has been great. I really enjoy it. I can't believe that our time is up. It's felt like it just whizzed by.
Yeah, especially like in the sauna here, but.
I had a brief meltdown, but I'm better now. I'm better. This feels good now. I could go again. I can go for another couple hours. What do you want to talk about?
I feel a little detoxed now, to be honest. Like all the sweat has like come out, and now I can like get into trouble this weekend.
See, Nick, I did this for you. I did this for you.
Good looking out.
Are you so grateful now?
Good looking out.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like I maybe one day we'll do this again in different onesies.
Yes. Or like leotards, just to like have some better temperature control.
Yeah, we could do like unitards. I guess that also covers all the skin though. Yeah, okay, so like a leotard, that's our best bet. Okay, we could do it. We could do it that way.
All right, well.
We could do it that way.
Well, I'll hold you to it.
I'll be there. Don't threaten me with a good time, sir.
All right.
I'll be right back.
All right, folks. Well, remember to like and subscribe. And how can folks follow you if they want to, check your shit out?
You can find me on all social media at the handle I Melt Your Face. With the exception of Twitch. There's somebody on Twitch that took my handle, and I don't think that I can get it back now. So on Twitch, I'm @DJ_Eva.
And I think that's an apt description of what she will do to you on the dance floor or over Twitch. So if that's your bag, folks, definitely check it out.
Or if not, then just put yourself in a onesie and melt your own face.
Right on. All right, folks, until next week.